Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses across the UK. If you have any questions during this session, then please ask them in the live feed and I'll try and answer them as best I can. If you need any more advice during this show or afterwards, please make sure you join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. There's accountants and business experts such as myself on there 24/7. Happy to answer your questions and share our knowledge. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with that, and I'll reveal the results at the end of today's show. If you're on TikTok, check out our Be Your Own Boss competition. Pitch a business idea and you could win an investment, mentorship, and business advice to help make it a reality. The investment pot is now up to £10,000. Thanks to Go Cardless adding more into the pot than the initial pot had. The purposeful project pot. Tag hashtag Be Your Own Business to enter with your short video on your business plan. My name is Johann Goree and I am the Managing Director of OnPoint Accounting Group. We're a group of accounting firms and brands across the UK looking to support small businesses to grow and thrive. I wanted to talk to you today. After the last couple of shows I've been speaking about recruiting staff and incentivizing staff to stay with you for a long-term basis to save having to re-recruit all the time. I wanted to talk to you today about accidental managers. Now, accidental managers is something I come across a lot in my role. I go into lots of little businesses and a business owner has become a manager of people, or they've promoted someone who's really good at selling products or delivering the service that they deliver, such as cooking food, into a management role. And actually, they've not got any management experience. So the reason I wanted to talk to you about this today is there's been a few press articles recently about staff complaining about managers or small businesses struggling to recruit people, and it can be down to reputation of the management and leadership of that business. So over last week, there was a big story about Brewdog and the culture within Brewdog being poor, with 60 staff writing a letter. That is an extreme example of accidental managers. People were potentially promoted without the right experience or knowledge of how to manage and lead teams. It happens to business owners all the time. You start your business, you're running a bike shop, for example, it's going really well, you're getting busy, you recruit someone to come and work on a Saturday with you because that's your busiest day. Then you need to recruit someone else because you're going to launch a new service within the bike shop. But actually the person that's running the bike shop and managing these people now has never undertaken any training or experience of management. And because of that, what happens is they generally default back to a management experience they've had. And depending on how young that person is, quite often it can default back to a teacher-student type relationship. They think that's how you manage people, is you become the teacher in a school environment and you manage them as if they were a pupil, which can obviously cause all sorts of trouble because that isn't how we manage people in the workplace these days. Other people will have had absolutely awful managers in their early careers and they start emulating those behaviors, which just makes problems worse for them. And some people will have had fantastic managers and will emulate those behaviors and they'll get by and they'll do okay because they've done a bit of training, they've watched and they've observed and taken on board how that good manager managed them, and they emulate that to their team. It's really important, business owners, if you're going to start taking on team members, you think about how you're going to manage people. It all builds into the culture and ethics of your business. So have a think about how you're going to manage them. How are you going to support people to grow and develop within your business? How are you going to help make them want to stay in your business? Because as soon as you start getting a reputation for being a poor manager, that makes recruitment really difficult. Now, I spoke about Brewdog. That is an extreme example. Because of Brewdog's social media and press, the press were really interested in Brewdog because of their story. If you have an accidental manager causing problems in a small cafe, the chances are you're not going to have a letter sent to the press and leaked everywhere. But it's still going to cause you problems with your recruitment, because word of mouth will spread in the local town that, oh, don't go and work for so-and-so's cafe. It's really hard work. They don't support you. They just tell you off constantly, blah, blah, blah. So it's really important that we all get this right, or work towards getting it right. So what I would suggest for you is to think back on your management experiences. If you've had a really good manager, why were they really good? What did they do to make you think this person's fantastic at managing me? Now, remember, not everyone's going to value the same style of management. Some people want someone that's a micromanager that will manage you on a task by task basis. Other people like more relaxed, hands-off managers who trust you and let you just get on with your own initiative. So just because it's been a fantastic manager for you doesn't mean it's going to be fantastic for everyone, but it's a really good starting point. In my time going through my career, I've had some absolutely fantastic managers who I try and emulate today. But I've also had some really shocking managers. One in particular, when I was about 18, 19, was really, really poor. But I still learned from that person. Because what I did is I learned what I didn't like about their management style, what caused me a lot of stress and anxiety about going to work each day. And I've turned that around and said, right, they are attributes that I don't want to emulate when I'm a manager. So whenever I'm about to make a decision or do something, I have to ask myself, would so-and-so do that? If I say yes, and it's the person I don't want to emulate, then I need to review how I'm going to do it. If it's the person that I do want to emulate and I say yes, then fantastic, we'll give it a go. But there's also absolutely tons of books, audio books, YouTube's videos, etc., on how to be a good manager and how to manage people in a small business. So it's really worth, if you're thinking about having taken on staff or you've recently taken on some staff, have a Google, have a look for some leadership books, management books, have a look for YouTube channels and how you want to, and look for different management training things. There's absolutely tons and tons of resources on the CMI.org website. So CMI is Chartered Management Institute. It's where I've done a lot of my training. I'm currently studying to do a PhD level in management and leadership. So the CMI website's got absolutely tons of great resources on there. There's a great podcast, there's a great YouTube channel. Normally looking at some of the more higher up stuff, like taking examples of how the NHS are being managed, etc. But there's a lot of stuff there that you can distill into your small business. And then there's also loads of other resources and audiobooks that would be worth having a look through. It's very much down to your learning style as to which one you would look at. Personally, I quite enjoy an audiobook, especially when I'm out walking the dog or walking to work. I enjoy podcasts while I'm sat at work, and there's absolutely loads of podcasts out there about how to manage people in small business. So definitely have a look at all of that and see if there's something that will help you. Because ultimately, as I say, by managing people correctly and supporting them and making them feel valued, you'll be able to retain them longer, which means you have to recruit less. But when you do have to recruit, there will be a really positive word of mouth about you out there and how you manage your team. So as an example, one of our clients, the Apple Arms Hotel up in Dunkeld, they've just won an award. They've become the first hospitality business in Perthshire to be recognised for fair hospitality recruitment and employment. So they have signed a charter, they've agreed to certain things. That means that their staff will always be paid minimum, will be paid living wage. They're going to send their staff, they're going to pay for taxis to send their staff home after 12 a.m. There's X amount of notice of shift changes and shifts. So they've met all these different criteria to be seen as an exemplary employer. And when it comes to recruitment in the local area, they never struggle compared to the struggles that others have. So it's a really important thing to have a look at as to how you manage your team on a day-to-day basis, because that has an impact on you at a later point. So hopefully that helps, and it continues the talk I've been doing about recruitment and employing people. It's a really important thing to get right when you're going into that stage of business. Right, there is move on though. Let's move on to the questions that are coming in. So our first question is from Enya on Instagram DM. I do freelance marketing through my own limited company and potentially have a new international client in Dubai. Are there any tax or other implications I should be aware of before I start? So I'm not an expert when it comes to tax with international companies. However, as far as I think you need to be aware, you just need to worry about the tax implications for yourself in the country that you are the resident in, and the client will be responsible for taxes in their residential country of Dubai in this case. What I would suggest, however, is you have a chat with your accountant who can do some research on this. As I say, I don't deal with international taxation very often at all, so I wouldn't want you to take anything I say as gospel on this matter. Go and have a chat with your accountant. If you've not got one and you're looking for an accountant, have a look for one that's got experience with international taxation, and they'll be able to put your mind at rest with a quick phone call, I'm sure. So I hope that helps as a direction to move in. We've got a question from Abby on Facebook Messenger. Hi Johann, I run a small clothing boutique, primarily online, running for just over a year and now starting to take off. Fantastic, well done Abby. I had been doing my books on QuickBooks myself, but now I'm looking for an accountant. I want one who really understands the sector I'm in. What should I be looking for? Okay, Abby, what you need to look for is first, go to the QuickBooks website. And on the QuickBooks online website, there is an accountant directory called Find an Accountant. On there is all your QuickBooks certified pro advisors. These are all people that have passed their training, so they know QuickBooks inside out. So that's a really good place for you to start. But then when you're then meeting them, you need to be asking them questions about what experience have you got with online selling and online businesses, because it is quite a mammoth of a task at times, because you could be selling on multiple platforms, which means we need to pull the data in from multiple places. We need to get all that into QuickBooks. It's all really easy to do. Now we've got things like OneSaaS, which QuickBooks now has brought. It talks to, say, eBay, it talks to Shopify, and it brings in the data from those into QuickBooks for us. So it's very simple once we've got it up and running, but you need to know what you're doing with the connections to make sure all the mapping of the information is correct into QuickBooks, otherwise it can become very messy very quickly. Have a look for that. One of my teams has got a lot of experience with online selling, so if you want any advice as to what to look for, I'm more than happy to have a chat. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. You want to look at the online QuickBooks Find an Accountant page first. Shortlist some accountants for yourself. Remember, it doesn't have to be someone local. It could be anyone across the UK, because we've all got Zoom and cloud technology now, if that's how you want to work. And then when you're talking to them, work out what experience they've got using various platforms that you're trading on, so that you know the data is coming in accurately into QuickBooks. So I hope that helps, Abby, and congratulations on it all taking off. Right. We've got a Twitter DM from Will. What should you do if even after you've completed loads of training, a manager still isn't operating to the standard you need them to, particularly if they're not necessarily done anything wrong. This is really hard, Will. I mean, UK employment law gives employees fantastic protections, but as an employer, it's not always an ideal situation. So if they've not done anything wrong, I suppose the question's got to be what is it you're not happy with? Because you can't help someone to train and learn themselves out of a habit or behaviour until you can communicate to them what's not right. So you need to identify what they're doing wrong before and explain that to them so they can understand what they need to do to change. If they then don't choose to change and they ignore the training and support you're giving them, then that's a different matter and you need to talk to HR people about that, really. But yeah, if you don't know what they're particularly doing wrong, but you just aren't happy with something, you need to spend a bit more time analysing their behaviours, their actions, etc., and distill what it is that they are doing wrong, so you can then communicate that to them, and go from there. I hope that helps. So yeah, just focus on working out what it is that you're not happy with what they're doing, and then communicate that to them. Because most good managers will learn and want to improve. Question from Lenny on Facebook Messenger. I run an event space, and as you can imagine, we're still hit hard by all of this COVID. We're opening up again now, which is fab. If an industry like mine where we were so directly affected by restrictions, I'm not sure how we can create alternative revenue streams. Any advice? Because I don't know what type of events you're running, then not at the moment. It would be difficult for me to come up with alternative ways. My first suggestion would be to go online. Could your events be run online? So we've got lots of conferences, lots of kids performances and stuff has all gone online in the last year. I'll be the first to say I don't think an online conference is ever anywhere as good as an offline conference, because you don't get the networking opportunity, you don't get the face-to-face interaction. Technology, no matter how well you work with it, is always going to be a bit of a bugbear for you. But if you're running events such as conferences and stuff, then try running them online, or an online version at a reduced rate. Other than that, I would need to know more about what events you're running, really, because I need to understand what other advice I can give. But if you wanted to give me more detail, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, so feel free to drop me a message and I can see if I can come up with any ideas or let you know what other people have been doing that I've seen. We've got Russell on Instagram DM. I have a new client who has done a lot of personal spending on her business account. I've told her to stop, but when it comes to doing her year-end accounts, do I class all these as drawings, or is there a better or easier solution? It depends if they're limited or a sole trader. Russell, if they're limited, you'd put it all to a director's loan account. If it's a sole trader, then yes, you'd class it as drawings. It's not ideal that they're spending personal money out of her business account, but if they're not changing, then it's finding a solution around it. So I hope that helps. Sally on Twitter DM. What do you think are the key components of a really good manager? What qualities should they have? Oh, fantastic question, Sally. What I think makes a fantastic manager and what you think makes a fantastic manager could be two very different things, because we've all got different personalities, and our personalities interact with other personalities in different ways. So I personally find someone that micromanages, checks on all my work, that comes across to me as untrusting and irritating, and I struggle to work with people like that if they're trying to manage me. I prefer people that will delegate, offer support during the delegation of the job in case I need it, A more hands-off approach, because to me personally, that shows trust. But to someone who prefers micromanagers, someone that just delegates and has a more hands-off approach shows a lack of support to them. So it's really down to what personality types you've got you're working with. And that can be driven by the industry you're in. So if you're in a arts industry, for example, people that tend to work in arts would prefer more hands-off opportunities so they can have time to have inspiration and creativity. So it really is difficult to get a concise ideal manager. Things I would always be looking for in everyone is approachability. Have you got the confidence to go to them and talk to them about anything that's the matter? Have you got the confidence to go to them and say, look, something's not working? So they need to be approachable. They need to be open to new ideas and suggestions. Sometimes the best suggestions come up from the ground floor. And as managers, we need to not be too proud and arrogant to think that we have all the best ideas. So we've got to be open and approachable. Good communicator. And I personally like someone that shows their emotional investment into the team. I want them to be part of the team that I'm in. I don't want them to be holding themselves away from the team. I want them to hold themselves to the same standards as they hold everyone else in their team. So I hope that helps, Sally. It's really a personal thing as to what makes a really good manager, but openness, approachability, and a lack of pride and arrogance in their own self is a really important few factors to consider. We have got a question on Facebook Messenger from Amara. The pandemic forced my business online, and actually we did quite well. We've opened up the shop again recently, but I'm finding it tricky to keep up with both. We don't have enough resources, but also don't have enough cash to only do one. What should I do? Well, it sounds like you need to potentially get more resources in the form of staffing. It's not a cheap way to do it, but there are options out there. Like, could you take on an apprentice? Could you take on a Kickstarter? For information on both of those, you can go to the government website, gov.uk, and type into the search bar Kickstarter or apprentice, and they'll come up with how those schemes are working. Otherwise, the other option is to find more efficiencies. How can you run both operations more systematically? Is there time being wasted stood around in the shop not being utilised properly? Could they be doing something to support the online business at that time? So effective ways of working is a often keyed term. So yeah, have a look at stuff like that. But there are very affordable ways of getting staffing in at the moment in the form of apprenticeships and Kickstarters. So have a look at those as well. We have got a question from Talia on Twitter DM. How do you hire managers that are good and know what to look out for in employees when we may train them up? I think sometimes it's harder to spot before you see them in action. It's really hard to spot a good manager for an interview. If we just go back to the training up part first, I always love the example of a great chef does not make a great head chef. You could be a fantastic chef cooking amazing food, but a head chef doesn't always do much cooking. They generally are managing and leading a team. So if you're an amazing chef cooking food, but you're not very good at managing people, the head chef role, you're going to really struggle in. So just because someone's fantastic at their job they're doing today doesn't mean they're going to be very good at the next job up. So it's not an instant promotion type thing. You need to check for that, how they interact with the team, how do they step up in the line manager's absence. So if your head chef went on holiday for a week and you ask that person to step up, that's a really great opportunity for them to step up and show their skills that they've got. And at the end of the week, you can monitor them closely throughout the week. At the end of the week, feed back to them, what do you need to work on? What went well? and that way they've learned. It's been a learning experience for you both, and hopefully when the head chef moves on, you'd then be able to promote that chef. In an interview style, when you're recruiting from scratch, what I would suggest is looking at giving them scenarios and say, right, this is the scenario, what would you do? And judging them on their responses, because that should give you a bit of an idea of how they're going to manage people. They could always give the answer you're looking for and then be terrible, but at least it's a bit of a filter. So I'd certainly have a look at that if you giving them scenarios during the interviews. I hope that helps, Talia. Right, our last question for today is, it looks like, question in on Instagram DM from Jane. It's looking like restrictions are not going to be eased. I guess we'll find out later today. Yeah, this is for England, Scotland, and Wales, and Northern Ireland will announce at later points. If that's the case, how should businesses respond? Is there anything we should consider with our accounts? Jane, at the moment, I think the most important thing is to keep your cash liquid. Don't go out buying up new equipment and stuff ready for reopening just yet, because you don't know. I'm telling everyone that we speak to, hold off your investment for now, unless you've got the trade in the current circumstances. If you're preparing for the next lockdown easement, then I would strongly suggest just holding off until the lockdown has been approved and it goes live, because things can change. And if you tie up all your cash in new equipment, which you then can't use because the lockdown didn't reduce as you expected it to, then you could struggle for cash flow in the future. So keep your cash liquid is my top advice, Jane. Okay, that was our last question for today. And the poll results are in. We asked you, do you have an accountant? 50% said yes, 50% said no. There is considerable research out there that shows small businesses are more successful in their first 5 years with an accountant than those that don't have an accountant. Businesses without an accountant are more likely to fail in their first 5 years than if they have an accountant. So I would strongly urge everyone to have an accountant, just for the advice and that information that they can give you on a day-to-day basis. It's really, really important. But I hope that helps, and that, definitely go out and have a look at an accountant and see what value they can bring to your business, because it's more than just a set of accounts these days. These accountants have hundreds of clients that have lots of experiences, and all the clients tell them their experiences. So they're just a font of knowledge and experience that they can pass on to all their clients. I think it's a fantastic value. So that's it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me a message on LinkedIn or connect with me on Twitter. On LinkedIn, it's Johann Goree. On Twitter, it's Goree Johann. Nice and easy. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Nana Parry, founder of Tectonic, a boutique firm that helps businesses understand who their customers are and what they actually need. Tune in to learn how you can master B2B or business to business marketing techniques. And a reminder that if you need any more advice, then make sure you join the official QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. There's accountants and business experts such as myself on there 24/7, handing out knowledge and answering questions. And don't forget the Be Your Own Boss competition on TikTok. Pitch a new business idea and you could win investment, mentorship and business advice. The investment pot is now up to £10,000 thanks to Go Cardless adding more into the initial pot from the Purposeful project. Tag hashtag Be Your Own Boss to enter the competition. Really enjoyed answering your questions today. I hope the topic about management and good managers and accidental managers has been of some interest to you. Thank you very much and have a great day.